Every year, I aim to read a book a month to increase my knowledge on broader concepts in economics, financial markets, and financial planning. This past year, I hit on many books with my Audible subscription. A few really rose above the rest to win the notable mention for my year-end recap. I'm going to be sharing the hardest insights that I found. First, from Beginning of Infinity. This was a book recommended by legendary Berkshire Hathaway chairman Charlie Munger. While much of this book was pretty intellectually complex, the central thesis completely blew my mind. The author makes the case that our global society has reached this tipping point in history. It started around the Enlightenment, where we began to codify scientific knowledge and the limits of that knowledge. And we created, at the same time, an economic system that rewards these novel and important technological developments on the cutting edge of knowledge. There's a reward system for continuing to expand and apply new ideas. The author goes a step further, and he says, because we have reached this point where we keep learning new things and applying new ideas, virtually everything else will be discovered, because there is no limit to the ability of the scientific process to continue to make these incremental improvements in knowledge. The implication is that all of the problems that we face as a society today can eventually be eradicated by the power of human ingenuity, if we survive long enough to get to these potential solutions and thrive long enough to get there. Think about it like this. Imagine you're on a treasure hunt and you find each new clue leads you to even more new clues, never running out of new things to discover. Because our society rewards discovering and building on these clues, we can keep inventing new solutions. I keep hearing in the news about the astonishing power of quantum computing, nuclear fusion generators. While these are possibly decades away, it's still staggering to consider the potential that these technologies have to really change the world. Well, the author did caveat that there's no guarantee that we get there. A nuclear war could break out and set us back centuries, or some other disaster could completely derail the progress that's being made. This is understandable risk. And as a financial advisor, reading this book really gave me great hope that is grounded in hard-headed fact that optimism for the future could perhaps be the soundest outlook. Science translated into real-world application is done by companies that are seeking to earn profits and grow their profits and value. Shareholders have potential to participate in these innovations and gains made by great companies. And so it really does translate into how we make decisions as investors for the future. The next book was The Wealth and Poverty of Nations. This book really challenged my understanding of global economics. The author explores how economic success often correlates with a variety of different factors, such as cultural attitude. Particularly, one example was the embrace of innovation, hard work, and the entrepreneurial spirit. This example was given at a time around the Enlightenment when the UK prospered, embracing scientific progress, open markets, and industrial innovation. The cultural shift towards valuing inquiry, invention, and economic freedom really laid the groundwork for the UK to become a world leader at that time. And compared to a peer country, Portugal, it provides a unique contrast to show the impact of cultural attitudes. During the same period, Portugal resisted many of the Enlightenment scientific advancements. They maintained a more traditionalist and hierarchical social structure. And this reluctance to adopt these forward-looking attitudes around knowledge and economic reform, it really limited its industrial progress and economic development compared to several of its European neighbors. And this book highlights that while cultural attitudes can make a very key difference, especially among comparably situated countries through history, other factors such as geography and climate are not to be underestimated. For example, equatorial countries had higher heat and higher rates of infectious disease as a consequence. There was harsh influences on productivity. And even though there's been significant technological development, such as air conditioning, and it's leveled the playing field, these nations have a big gap to make up from a lot of this lost time in history. And lastly, the author did warn that even prosperous nations can stagnate if they become complacent and overly protective of outdated industries. And this explains part of the reason why Great Britain eventually fell behind the US during the Industrial Revolution after becoming the leading superpower. The last book was Chip Wars, and this book was a major eye-opener on the topic of semiconductors, or microchips. Ever since ChatGPT splashed onto the scene in 2023, the demand for semiconductors has surged, and it's been a key driving force behind some of the recent growth in the stock market. If you had any doubt of how important chips are on the global economy, today's market, it's January 27th, 2025, shows how significant it can be. DeepSeek, which is a Chinese AI company, purports to be able to produce a comparable AI, artificial intelligence output with significantly less chips. And this cratered the semiconductor stocks, sending the whole sector down by almost 10%. This technology of AI is really driven by semiconductors, and it's shaping the world we live in for decades to come. And the book really illuminated some of the key players and dynamics in the semiconductor industry. To give another example of how significant the semiconductor industry is, the author drew upon an example from how things played out in the Cold War in the US against the Soviet Union. The US had a relatively more advanced missile-guided system, which could target missiles substantially more accurate than anyone else had access to at the time. This one factor could have made a significant difference in how the whole situation played out, as the Soviet Union had a significantly more powerful arsenal but could not compare in the quality of the chips required to drive accuracy, which was a strong point the US had to influence a peaceful resolution. This underscores how significant semis are to the economy, but also geopolitical situations and national security. It's a significant theme to continue to monitor, and something I'm glad I invested some time in understanding, just to see who the big players are, what the challenges the industry face are, and what the potential opportunities are going forward into the future. I hope you found this interesting. I will continue to read one book a month, at least this year, through Audible. I'll also pick up the occasional hardcover. Stay tuned for more updates from our channel ahead. Feel free to subscribe to our channel. And if you want to learn more about how we're working with clients, please feel free to check out our video link below to learn about financial planning strategy that we feel could potentially boost your retirement nest egg by $100,000 or potentially a lot more.